Are you kind of ready? Because the fan's off.
Where am I looking at?
You're gonna be looking towards me. This thing over here.
Okay.
Make sure he's square. We're good to go.
Okay.
You're gonna introduce yourself first, and then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Mari001. I manage the SNAP Outreach Program at the Food Bank of Alaska. We are really the only program that is totally dedicated to SNAP outreach in the state. And so our service area is statewide, which there are 3 of us here in Anchorage trying to serve this really massive state. Alaska is, if you think about the contiguous U.S., Alaska stretches from basically California to Georgia. So, except for there aren't roads connecting most of that. So most of the state is made up of really small, isolated communities that can't be reached by driving. Many of them struggle with internet reception and phone reception. Most of them don't have a local public assistance state office that they can go to, so the correspondence is all done via phone and fax and mail. And so our partnerships with other agencies are really important to us. The relationships that we have with local providers, they're very important to us, and we could never reach the rest of the state without them. So what we are trying to do is establish relationships with local providers. We have partnerships with hospitals, tribal entities, schools, basically whoever is providing service in their region. And we do our best to support them and make sure they're trained to assist their own community members with the SNAP applications. We see that as the most effective and the most efficient way to reach such a wide service area. So that's why we were really excited to join this Feeding America SNAP Capacity Institute, and it's focused on partnerships, which is something that we're going to be focusing on more and more into the future. That's really where we see our program going in the future. And so when we were asked to invite a partner to join us in the group, probably the first person I thought of was Barbara Nunn, and she manages the Bristol Bay Regional Food Bank. That's I've only actually met her in person a couple times. She's about a $700 plane ticket away from me, from the food bank in Anchorage. So most of our communication is done over email or calling. We text a lot, back and forth. I feel like I know her really well, even though we've only met a couple times. But Barbara is one of the strongest partners that we have. She works not only as the food bank manager, but as how it goes in a lot of small communities. She's wears a lot of different hats as well. She does village safety. She also is the local grocery store manager. She is a commercial fisherwoman. She helps at the school, amongst lots of other things. So she's really well known and respected in her community. Not only in her community, but she serves 19 other villages that are outlying. So she's been a really key contact for us as far as somebody who's already really established and who people already trust, and she's able to relate to them on a personal level. And that not only makes it easier for us to do outreach, but it's also provides a better quality of service for the clients. So what that looks like is she works at the food bank. She sends them food boxes. She mails food boxes to the villages. And at the same time, she's able to assist them mostly over the phone and through fax to do the applications. She helps them to interpret the letters that they get from the state, because a lot of the folks in these small communities will get the letters from the state and are confused. They don't know what it means. So they're like, Barbara, I got this letter, what does it mean? And she's able to say, oh, well, you're supposed to submit your recertification, let me help you do that. So she's able to answer a lot of their questions in a way that the state isn't always able to, because, you know, oftentimes the state is very busy. And actually, Barbara's village, Barbara's community, and the outlying villages are served by an office in Anchorage remotely, so there isn't an office that they can just walk into. They have to rely on phone calls and fax, basically, which, as I said, the phone service isn't always reliable, the mail isn't always reliable, things are really variable depending on the weather, so sometimes mail will be delayed for a month because the weather's bad and the planes can't take off, or the phone lines are down because, you know, the power lines all went out. So having Barbara there as a regional kind of primary contact for them really helps us a lot. She's our eyes. She's kind of our eyes and ears for that region of Bristol Bay. What else did I talk about?
Okay, well, did you mention about that there's no roads to any of these villages, or only to one of the 19 villages?
Oh.
That kind of thing. So that would be that. And then another thing, I might emphasize a little bit about the weather.
True.
You know, in the wintertime, it could get, what's it, 50 below there? I don't know. 40
I don't know
below.
what it is like there.
You know, the winters, or just harsh winters or whatever. And then the other thing what you did as far as like on a wrap-up, your summary thing.
Oh, my summary.
You talked about...
Oh, I have to talk about training.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you want to talk about
yeah,
the program,
yeah.
you want to mention
I'm getting confused
Feeding America again.
about what I already talked about.
And then,
Okay. So, but yeah, so Barbara's Food Bank is located in the Bristol Bay region. She's in Dillingham, but they service 19 villages, which I think only one of the 19 you can actually drive to. The rest you have to take a tiny little plane, bush plane, and fly out to, take multiple flights to fly, or take the ferry. So she actually ships the food boxes in the mail, again, which sometimes get delayed due to the weather. And so these folks are really pretty isolated. Sometimes they have to take a $300 plane ticket to get to Dillingham just so they can do their grocery shopping. You know, so a lot of the folks in these very small rural villages are, I would say, perhaps have a higher need than folks in urban areas. You know, they have more limited access to resources, fewer jobs.
Another thing I might want to mention is the cost of the groceries.
Oh.
Because, you know, why these food shipments are important, because the cost of the groceries are just outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 times or whatever or more for the prices.
Yeah. And the reason SNAP is really so critical in especially the rural areas is because you know, a typical village might be a couple hundred people. There are 2 jobs in the village, and they're just transitioning to a cash economy, relying really heavily on assistance programs like SNAP to help them just meet their daily needs. And so the cost of living is really high in the villages. There are lots of shipping costs related to getting resources all the way out to such an isolated place. So the cost of living is exorbitant. You need probably a couple jobs to get by, but there aren't any jobs really. So the cost of milk, I think, is like $10 a gallon in some of these places. By the time the vegetables get shipped over, it's, you know, rotten a lot of times, and it's just very expensive to live. Gas, utilities are expensive as well, that people need to pay to heat their homes and to cook their food, and it gets very cold in a lot of these places. So the cost of living is very high. It can be a tough environment to live in, and so the more resources that we're able to get to these folks, and SNAP is so crucial because it's money that's coming into their pockets every month that can go towards food. And without programs like SNAP, I think life would be a lot harder. Just daily living would be a lot harder for a lot of those folks. So as part of the Feeding America's, the SNAP Capacity Institute, Barbara and I have gotten the opportunity to meet with food banks, SNAP outreach programs from across the country. We've met with other people who experience similar challenges as we do, similar. And we've learned about what their successes have been and gotten some ideas about ways we might be able to try some of the things that they've done in other places. Yeah, I think that being part of the peer group together has strengthened our relationship. You know, the relationship between myself and Barbara. Like I said, we don't get to see each other a lot in person, but as part of this institute, we were able to take a trip together to Georgia to meet with the other food banks, and we've been in more constant communication, I would say, and it really has given us an opportunity to invest time in our partnership specifically, and to be able to come together and really think critically about, what are some things that we're doing well in our partnership, and also what are some ways we can improve and continue to grow. So as part of being part of the peer group, one thing that we've decided is Barbara would really benefit from some trainings, from some additional trainings. So we have trained Barbara on the SNAP application itself, and on the program itself, and on our Oasis Insights database. So right now she's at a point where she is able to independently assist people on the applications, to walk them through it, take them through the application process, and enter the data into our database. And that's another way that we remain in communication with one another. One thing she can't do right now is to take them all the way through to the interviews and the eligibility determination, which for some folks is a part of the process where they drop off because, if they don't have a phone where they can get their interview, or the service is down that day, or the mail doesn't come in, or the fax doesn't come in. But there is a training through the state that will allow Barbara to actually do the interviews for food stamps, for SNAP, and would really, really even more so help her to assist her clients and help them walk through even more of the process with them, to increase the likelihood that they'll actually end up getting their benefits and stay on their benefits. And so this training is something we have identified as what Barbara really wants, and that I'm going to help coordinate with the state and make sure that we're able to get all the paperwork in and coordinate with the necessary people. It does take some coordination to get this training accomplished. So I've been working with Barbara for the past couple months ever since we've been part of this institute, to get that training, and it looks like, crossing our fingers, we'll hopefully be able to get her this training so she can do the interviews really soon. And so we're both looking forward to that, and that'll, I think, make a big difference for that community. And we hope, Barbara will be the first partner that we've gotten this training for. And if it goes well, we hope to replicate that with some of our other partners in rural areas, so that even more of the state can have access to well-trained partners who are able to assist their clients apply for SNAP.
Does the institute, does that make a big difference in helping to get get access or get the state on board as far as training somebody to do the interview process? Is that helping with that, or no? As far as
No.
Not really. So this is
I think the being part of the Feeding America peer group has been really valuable, as far as kind of giving us a little bit more of a nudge, Barbara and I, to really sit down, well, remotely, and think about, okay, like think critically about our partnership, and to think, what is it that can even take us a step further, and what can I do, Barbara, to help you, support you, so that you're able to help your clients in your region. And so, as being part of those discussions, what's come out is that training is a really essential piece of the puzzle, and that if she is able to attain these extra trainings, she will be able to walk farther along the process with her clients, and to give them a bit more personalized attention, and hopefully increase the likelihood that they actually get approved. So yeah, it's been more of just giving us that extra nudge to really think about and identify what can move our partnership forward. And my hope is that, I will have 100 more partners like Barbara, all spread out throughout the state. So, once I'm able to get this training for Barbara done, I hope to replicate that, the trainings that we're providing and the support we're giving with other providers, local providers across the state too.
Would she be the first one to do this outside of the state?
Barbara will be, once we're able to get this training, once we're able to help Barbara accomplish this training, she will be the first one that we've assisted to get this training. And we hope that we can get all of our partners who want to.
Is anybody else in the country doing this right now, or is this to be the first one? That's kind of like what I meant.
Yeah, so, because Alaska is such a unique state, it's really more like a country, but because it's such a unique state and is so isolated and experiences pretty extreme rural challenges, Alaska is the only state that I know of that allows this certain training, that provides the opportunity for folks in rural communities to do interviews for SNAP, not just the application but also interviews. And so the idea is that because there aren't physical state offices in most communities, to provide the rural residents some other way to get on the program, to increase their access to the resources, because they need it just as badly, if not more. Because right now, if a community doesn't have someone like Barbara who's able to do the interview for them, with them, what that would look like is the state office, way in Anchorage or somewhere else in the state, who doesn't know who they are and doesn't. So what it looks like now is, if a community doesn't have somebody like Barbara who's able to do the interview with them, someone in another office, remotely, will do an application over the phone with them, oftentimes a month or two out. And what happens is a lot of folks don't actually make it to the interview because they don't have phone reception that day. The phone lines are down, or something goes wrong with their phone, or the fax machine doesn't work, or the mail doesn't take off when it should, so they don't actually get the letter in time, or they don't understand the letter when they get it because maybe their first language is not English. I've heard that a lot, actually, is a reason why folks don't actually get on the program and stay on the program, is because they don't necessarily understand the letters that they're getting from the state. And it's all done, the communication is all done via letter, mail or fax or over the phone. And especially for the elders in rural communities, English is not their first language. Even if English is your first language, sometimes those letters are hard to understand. I have to read it a couple times sometimes.
Just so people understand a little bit better, as far as like the language thing, you have all these different villages But a lot of these villages have their own language, so there's multiple
Yeah.
languages in there. So,
So,
there's
yeah, I would say another reason it's so important and critical for us to have good partnerships all over the state is because it's such a big state. It's really easier to think of it like a country because each region, each area has their own languages, their own traditions, their own cultures, and so and their own needs. They're all pretty unique and spread out. So it helps to have contacts in those regions who are familiar with what the local languages are, the local customs, the local traditions. But I don't know how many. There must be hundreds of dialects, native dialects. And do you know?
I don't know how many. I know there's a lot of different all these different tribes have different languages. I mean,
Yeah. Only recently
they're
we're
all
like
all
the
unique.
voter.
They're all unique.
Only recently was there was a big push recently to make the voting materials available in native languages.
Right. So,
But-
just kind of like to sum up as far as like, all right, so the whole thing with the SNAP and like Barbara and getting her on board and then future partners on board with this program is that this is going to help people from one to go through the entire process and keep people from falling through the cracks and just fall up, and also to create probably more of an awareness of this program and get more.
Yeah. In the rural areas, I would say awareness is not as much of the issue because they need to be on these programs through necessity, right? Like there's no other way, no other income, and the cost of living is so high. So awareness, like maybe not necessarily. It's more a matter of keeping people on and making sure they stay on. I just talked to a guy today who was like, "Oh yeah, I used to get that, but I got this letter and I don't know what the heck it meant, so I didn't do it." It was his recertification, right? So he missed his recert, and that's why he had to wait to do the whole thing all over again, which is more work for everybody. It's more work for everybody. What was I gonna say? And another reason why having local partnerships with local providers is really key, and why we see the most effective and efficient model as empowering the local providers, because trust is such an important component as well for you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
trust
I do.
is so important. Trust really is so important, generally speaking, but especially I feel for the rural communities. And it's so much easier and is preferable, I would say, it makes it more comfortable for clients to be assisted by somebody that they trust and they know. They're so much more willing to go through the application process with somebody that they know and trust already. And so a lot of times there are already local providers that are already established in their communities, that already have connections. They maybe just don't have the appropriate training for SNAP specifically. So we see that as our role, I think, more and more. When I first started, it was just me actually for the whole state. But I was trying to do everything myself, all of the SNAP outreach and all the application assistance by myself. But more and more, we realize we really just can't do it on our own. And not only is it more efficient, but it's better for the community, better for clients, if it's the local providers that are providing the service. So we see our role more and more as providing the support and the training for those already on the ground in those regions. Which seems commonsensical, right? I don't know. But that's actually, so that was the purpose of this peer group, was to get a bunch of people from, I don't know if this is necessary, this is probably not necessary for the video, but it was a group of 10 food banks from all across the country were applied to join the group.
How was the group initiated? What was it?
It's Feeding America.
I mean, did did Feed America initiate this
I
thing?
don't know how I became aware of it at first, but you had to apply to join the group. So, I think on some other reporting form, I mentioned that we do, so in Feeding America language, there's direct application assistance and indirect models and hybrid models. So direct means that you personally, your program is providing the application assistance and the outreach. Indirect means you're training. It's like a train-the-trainer model. You're training partners to do the outreach. And hybrid obviously is both. But so we had checked off that we do a hybrid model because we do try to train our partners as well, especially when Mel is, we have a part-time person now in Anchorage, and then we have Mel, who's the rest of the state. So.
And Brian.
Brian, he's a pilot. That would be really cool. So we're hoping, because it makes such a difference to have boots on the ground in the region. Brian says that now he's in Juneau or in Ketchikan that people respond to him better. They, oh, you're based in Ketchikan, not like some person in Anchorage who doesn't understand what my life is like, right? Because it is a really different world. So yeah, we were asked to apply, or I guess they flagged us and said, it looks like you work with partners and you train partners to do application assistance. So we applied, and we got it. So it was 10 of us, 10 food banks from across the country, all of which use partner agencies to provide application assistance. Yeah, we had one in-person meeting in Cincinnati, where we came together, and then another in Georgia, in Atlanta, where we were asked to pick a partner to bring with us. So Barbara came along, and we do monthly teleconferences. We have a social media page that we communicate on. But basically they want to, we're sort of like a fishbowl, I think. So they want to have us have discussions and sort of learning discussions and experiences, and to think about our partnerships, and they're hoping to distill some knowledge from best practices from that they can then share with everybody else.
Now,
so sort of our perspective is a rural perspective, right? Because if Alaska can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, I was going to say, Alaska is more unique than any other state.
I know.
So it's got a whole set of different problems that a lot of these other states don't. Maybe they face to a certain degree, but not to the degree that they have here. So
I know. So sometimes I do feel like, I think, don't put this in, but in the group at the meeting, I think I said something once, and they were like, "Yeah, Mari, but no one else will care about that." That's just an Alaska thing. So to an extent, some things are Alaska specific, in the sense that it's so much more extreme here. But the basic concept of rural outreach is still the same, or it's similar. So we are more extreme than everybody else, but the basic things of I kind of like to think of it as finding a local champion. That person or that agency in that region who is willing to go the extra mile, who's really passionate, really connected, committed to the mission. That's Barbara, 100%. Finding that local champion in the regions who you can work with and can be your go-to person for that region. And I think that's really that's how I would like to see our rural outreach grow. Because, like I said, how else are you supposed to do it?
That's